there with the tie.
I see that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hazlitt Coaches Show. I'm your host, Andy Hade, and I'm joined here today with Coach Brunschweiler from boys and girls tennis and Coach Oliver from boys varsity swimming. Coach Oliver, let's start with you. Can you give us a quick rundown at this point, recap of how the season's going for the guys?
Well, right now it's going pretty good. We're 5-4. We got off to a rough start because we swam Perennial Powers Alma, which is going to win their third Class B state title this year, Okemos, which won the conference last year, Williamston, which is an outstanding team, and St. John's, which is going to vie for our league title out of our first 5 meets. But since then, we've got a little winning streak going. We've got 4 wins going into tonight's meet. So things are going well. The kids are coming around and improving real quickly. So very happy.
Good. What are some of the goals and expectations you had of this year's team as a coach coming in?
Well, we want to keep the numbers up. We're about 25 now. That was one of our goals. We want to go 9-4 in our dual meet, and starting out with 4 losses, our back's kind of to the wall, but we've got 2 tough meets against DeWitt and Corunna. If we happen to pull those off, and both are going to be extremely tight, we will finish 9-4 because the other meets are a little bit easier. As far as the league goes, we'll probably finish 5th, but that'd be very good for us. And essentially, we've got 4 kids we think that can make state cutoff times, and so far 2 out of the 4 have been there with 1 relay, so all 4 are going anyways. We've just got a few individual events to still pick up here, and I don't think that's going to be a problem for the rest of the year.
Good. Coach Brunschweiler, the boys' tennis season hasn't started yet, but just like Coach Oliver, how did the girls' season go?
Finished up the girls' season in October. It's a little shorter than most of the fall sports seasons with the weather and everything. It went real well. Amy Dark made it to the state quarterfinals at #1 singles, so she's going to be back next year. And we should have a real strong team with, I'm going to have heavy senior-dominated varsity for the girls next year. So we're going to look to try to do the best Hazlitt has ever done at the state tournament. So it should be exciting.
Before each season, do you set certain goals for the teams that you hope to obtain?
Tennis, you have to do off-season training for tennis. Usually involves paying money for lessons at some of the clubs. So we've set up some different groups with some of the guys and some of the girls to get in some classes and train together. They also have some smaller goals, whether it's exercise, weightlifting, or different things that they do to stay in shape. And I always try to do, since I have a lot of them in class, I try to do a lot of the mental part of it, whether it's, did you watch this match, or here's a question I hit them up with. So I try to keep them focused mentally in the off season on continuing to learn and grow as an athlete for my sport. So,
would you say setting goals is kind of essential?
Like any sport, like swimming, which Mr. Oliver was talking about, and tennis, it's the same thing. Tennis season is exactly 8 weeks long. So that gives you about 2 weeks to get the team rolling, get things going. So goals, I try to set the goals, especially with the boys. I try to set them early, and we try to get to them and exceed them as often as possible.
All right. Coach Oliver, you're a relatively new coach here at Hazlitt. What steps have you taken to improve the swimming program since you've been here?
Well, I eliminated required morning practices for one thing. I felt that kind of pushed too many people who wanted to try swimming, but just either because school loads too much, they're not a morning person, they need their sleep, there's too much homework at night, and it just would keep them out of it. And I think that's been a real huge step taken because the team essentially has doubled in size both years that I've been here. Secondly, we've worked with our club program through the Hazlitt Community Education. We've got an extremely good coach right now. The numbers are up there. We've got a swimmer night where we're having the middle school, elementary kids, and the club swimmers come to a swim meet for free to see what the high school swimming is all about, try and get them excited and enthused about that sport. So essentially we're trying to build up swimming to make it a big sport and a popular sport with the student body, taken as a real sport.
And we are supposed to be getting a new pool. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what that pool is going to provide for us?
Yeah. The pool is going to be outstanding. It's going to be one of the best in the area, if not the state. It's going to be 11 lanes by 25 yards. And put that in a kind of a perspective, if you've been to the Hazlitt pool, it's 25 yards long and 6 lanes. So it essentially would double the size of just the shell, the water itself, 11 lanes. It'll have 2 1-meter diving boards. It's going to have a 500 seating balcony type of seating arrangement, which is extremely nice because it's deck space on the deck for all the opposing teams. And we'll have almost double the deck spacing for teams to visit. If you've ever been there now, you've got maybe 7 or 8 feet from the edge of the pool to the wall, and there's hardly room to walk around when some teams are there. We'll have almost double that all the way around it, so it's going to be extremely nice. It's going to be a very, very nice facility.
Sounds good. Can't wait to see it. And Coach Brunschweiler, as the coach of both the boys and the girls tennis teams, do you approach both seasons the same way, or do you have to do something different for each specific season?
Definitely, you have to approach them a little bit differently in terms of the amount of physical work and the amount of mental work that they can accomplish during the season. I find both sports a lot of fun to coach, and the girls is in the fall, boys is in the spring, so there's a little bit of a gap there between the two. But more than anything, as you approach those two different types of athletes, you just have to kind of check the team, see the skill levels of the team, and just kind of find out what you can push them. I find the boys get pushed a little more. I find the girls seem to have a little more fun with it, so it's enjoyable both ways.
And I understand that you come from a pretty heavy tennis background. Can you tell us a little bit about that and
I
just
do,
outside
Andy.
your
I
coaching?
can tell you a little bit about that. I played quite a bit. I played a variety of sports growing up, and when I got into high school, where I went to school, it was very strongly focused at tennis, and you had to essentially give up your other sports to focus on one. Unfortunately, toward the end of my high school career, I did some damage to my right foot, and I was not able to finish my senior year of tennis, and I was not able to continue on after that. So I got into the coaching to fill in that gap, the lack of the competition, and it kind of really took off from there. So it's a really enjoyable game. I like to think that I play it and coach it as best as I can, but we'll just have to see what the results show this year.
All right, these last couple questions I'm just going to kind of leave open to either one of you. As coaches here at Hazlitt, what do you think is attributed to the overall success of Hazlitt athletics in the past decade?
Well, I'd just like to start off by saying, as a newer coach here, this is going to be my third year coaching or being involved with the team, and one thing I noticed right away as I looked through is when Mr. Oliver came in and some of the other coaches is how hard they worked to not only get new students interested in the sport, but to also encourage them while they were doing it to continue with it. So I think a lot of the programs here at the school have come in through a new change, and I think it's just bringing up the program. I hear from a lot of the males in the school that swim for Mr. Oliver that he's a great coach, that he's really positive about it, and he really encourages them. And I'd like to think that that's part of the Hazlitt Athletic Creed, that in addition to winning and things like that, we're also looking to teach a skill and to make sure that the kids enjoy their time here in high school and what they do. So I've really admired that about a lot of the Hazlitt coaches. They spend a lot of their free time. I know Mr. Oliver does. I spend a lot of my summertime out here on the course, and I see a lot of the other coaches working, doing things, out of their way to just try to help the program a little. So that's where I see a lot of the improvement.
Do you have anything to add to that, Coach Oliver?
Yeah, I see three things. I see we have an extremely supportive administration from Mr. Reagan on down, and with Jamie Gent. Secondly, Jamie goes out and secures and recruits extremely good coaches that have strong backgrounds like Henry here, that know the sport well, that know how to teach it, that know the fundamentals, that know how to coach. And then our weightlifting program and the PE program, I think, supplements all that. We've got quite a few kids who are in athletics who do a lot with the PE, and I think that really does just help continually make our athletes a little better because they're constantly working out, even when they're not working out.
Right. And then last, after each season, what do you as coaches take away from that season, and how do you use that to help make yourselves into better coaches?
I personally, I sit down at the end of every season, I try to do evaluations for the players, let them know where they individually have to get, and that helps me kind of assess where overall the program has to go, what direction, and how much more pushing I have to do with the athletes as well.
What I do is swimming's a little different than a lot of different sports, but I record our workouts every day. And I'll go back to the season and review them and just see, maybe in a certain point we didn't swim very well, so maybe what I was doing then didn't work as well as I'd hoped. So I'll analyze it and then redefine the workouts for the following season, somewhat in advance, kind of rough it out and say, hey, let's drop this, let's add this. Maybe do a little more sprinting a little bit earlier in the season than we did that year because we never got our speed quite as quick as we needed to and those kind of things. So I just reevaluate and go through. And in terms of personnel, you lose people who graduate or get hurt or move on, and you're not always sure who's coming up. But I can go back through also and look, so we're going to miss some backstrokers here, so I need to work with a few kids to develop some strokes in the off season to fill those holes in then.
All right. Thank you both for joining me here today. Earlier, I caught up with Coach Atluski of the varsity football, Coach Port, varsity boys basketball, and Coach Beebe, varsity girls basketball. Here's what they had to say.
I think, obviously with the way it started, it wasn't, an auspicious start by any means in terms of our standards, but I was real impressed with how we finished the season. I thought from probably midway through the season after our loss to DeWitt in the regular season to the end in the playoffs, I thought we were playing as well as any team had the last 5 or 6 seasons. Well, I think we talk a lot about our changes in the offensive line. By the end of the season in the playoffs, we had only 2 starters that had started against East Lansing that were starting by the end of the season. So obviously, there were some things that we did along the way to improve things, moving Joe Austin and a couple other people into the offensive line, moving Dave McMahon back into his offensive tackle spot. Plus, I think, overall we had a lot of young guys, both, the 3 sophomores that started in the regular season and some of the underclassmen, that as the season went along, obviously they got, more experience and started making less mistakes. And so, but overall, I think that it was a combination of factors that allowed us to play well at the end. Right. Overall, it's disappointing that we lost, but it wasn't disappointing in the effort that we gave. I mean, one of the things you want to do is, with your team is to make sure you have great effort. And we had great effort. It comes down to a couple plays here and there in any game, and they, and have to give them credit. They were able to make those kinds of plays, but it's always tough to lose, to a big rival like that, especially one in the playoffs as well, which is something we hadn't, done in the last few years. We have a nice group of sophomores, but I think we're going to have a real nice group of seniors. I think if you look at our juniors this year and the number of them that were starters or that had played a great deal, I think will be a big factor. Obviously, the sophomores that we played last year, we're going to expect good things out of them. But I think overall, our seniors have to be successful in order for us to be successful as a team. And I think that, I think it's contagious. I think winning is contagious. Once, I think our basketball and track programs for a long, long time were very successful, and I think we've been successful in football the last probably 6 or 7 years in particular. And so I think it's kind of a spontaneous growth where everybody wants to have that, that level of success. Girls basketball for many, many years was successful. So it's contagious, and I think, that once that gets started, our wrestling program last year had a great season. I think they're doing the same this year. So once you get that ball rolling, it's contagious where you want all the programs to win, and there's a big desire for everybody to have success here.
Well, I think our season this year, we got a lot better as the season went on. We, the girls really came together as a team, and I think, as a whole, we were 15-8, which, to some people that's maybe not a good record or a great record. To other people, it might seem like a really good record. I think just throwing the record part out of it, I think having a chance to beat DeWitt in the district championship and playing our best basketball at the end of the year is always what you want to do. So I would say it was a success, and I learned a lot, and hopefully the girls feel the same way. Yeah, I think that they got a lot out of it. I think we knew more going into the season what our weaknesses were as a team in terms of team togetherness and things that we needed to think about. The girls got to know each other a lot. I think it was real effective this year because we had a kind of a weird mix of girls. We had 4 sophomores, 3 juniors, and 4 seniors, and so anytime you have such a diverse group of kids, you got to make sure that you do something like that. So yeah, they had a lot of fun, and we got a lot out of it, and they learned a lot about each other, and I learned a lot about them too, and yeah, it was great. We're going to do something like that again this summer. Well, there's a lot of girls that aren't doing a sport right now that are in the weight room 3 days a week, and they're playing AAU, and that's a real positive. We talked about, we know we're going to be fairly successful next year. We got a good group coming back, and some kids off the JV that'll help us, and so we know our potential's there, but we know that if, we also have to outwork our opponents in the off season, because if you don't, then people, can surpass you or close the gap on you if you were a little bit better than them. So I think, yeah, next year's season, I'm looking forward to it already. I just, we want to make sure we outwork everybody now, and hopefully that'll pay off when the season comes. Well, the big thing is, I think as a program, as a whole, our kids need to get stronger. They need to be in the weight room. It always gives you an advantage if you're stronger, or a disadvantage if you're weaker. So we'll opt for the advantage, and so that's you know, that's the one thing. I've had girls coming in before school, working with them on their shot. You can spend time with girls a little more in the off season, working on their shot and teaching them some things to practice and so forth. So I've been doing that, and again, the girls that play AAU and so forth. And then the other thing would be that the girls that are playing volleyball or another winter sport, that's an advantage as well, because you're doing something and you're you know, of the competitive nature. So as long as they're doing something right now, I think it benefits their basketball. Well, I think, you know, our coaches work hard. In all sports, they work hard in the off season. They try to, you know, get better. I think that's the biggest thing about being a coach, is that you can't ever be content with how, you know, successful you are, or thinking that you know everything. And I think I see it, you know, all of our coaches, they're always trying to find ways to improve. You know, they spend a lot of time with their kids in the off season, which is a big thing. But I think one of the best things about our school, which might separate it from other schools, is that we encourage kids to play other sports, whereas other schools maybe focus more on specializing. And I think that the school of our size, if you know, the more sports you play, I think it's going to benefit you in the long run. You know, I personally would rather have girls playing, you know, a sport in the winter, as opposed to just saying that they're just going to focus totally on basketball, because I think you get kids get burned out of it by the time they're at the end of their high school career. So I think our coaches do a nice job of encouraging them to play sports in other seasons, and that keeps them fresh for their season.